I think one of the bigger changes that people don't talk about a lot is that with the smartphone in particular, you have this drip kind of coming off the network that's always, things are always happening in the background. And so people are not just walking around using their phone to kind of check out, wow, here's what I need to do right now. There's things formulating in the background for them, and they keep tabs on them in the back of their mind. And so there's a million things on the phone they can check into, check out of, and there's things running in the background of their mind as well as on their screen. And that, I think, is a mental shift for people that allows them to do more and do more simultaneously. And I think that's a big human shift in smartphones has brought on. Without that constant feed to the internet, especially, that just isn't possible. But then it becomes session-based, right? I'm going to go into an app, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to leave. Now apps are doing things for you, and you merely consummate the task, right? And I think social gaming is real indicative of that. I think social gaming is a human science, and that's important that way because it plays on things that people really respond to. And that's important for a lot of reasons, not just for the gamers themselves, where they get pride, they get caretaking responses taken care of, but they also get satisfaction, and of course the companies make a lot of money. The people respond not just with their time, but with their money themselves. They'll actually pay real money to have fake money put into their fake account. It's phenomenal. Up to 30% of people in social mobile gaming do that. And that creates a lot of money for the social gaming companies. But that wouldn't work if it didn't create a lot of emotional satisfaction for the people playing the games. And I think that is something that plays on that whole drip theory, which is the gaming is all about the drip coming off the internet. It's saying, hey, there's crops that need harvesting. Hey, somebody wants to buy something from your store. And you start taking on a responsibility for this fake little world, right? And you start thinking about it during your day. And without smartphones, that constant presence couldn't be there. You'd only see it when you go into it and go out of it, right? Like you used to see with Java phones. And that's a big change. What we started off with was email was a really big deal. And now that's shifted to Facebook, and it's shifted to social networking. And I think being socially tethered to things has become really, really important. And I think that's where you see data access really taking off from a business standpoint, is that people check in to social networks far more frequently than they do with email, right? Again, it gets back to the session-based versus the network drip that's constantly going on. And I think that's the biggest change that we've seen from a services standpoint. I think people look at a sharing event and they have a chuckle, and it's not simply communicating. I think they get enjoyment out of it. And I was talking about this with someone the other day where they say, it's not the act of a comment, it's the result of a comment that people pay attention to. So a comment can be read on Facebook, but they think about that comment all day, right? That's a playful kind of engagement where it sticks with you besides when you're looking at the phone. Communications is kind of blurring with social activity and gaming. It's participation, really, and we're in that business of enabling participation to the things that people care about the most. And we always pride ourselves as being Switzerland. We're not going to take side and say we're only about Facebook or we're only about Microsoft. We're going to realize that people have allegiances all over the place. We want to enable that and have that be powerful for our customers. I don't think it's the phone that's your identity, although I think that's the wand that people can point at, right? I think it's the cloud-based services that are coming up are more of where your identity really lies. And that's a nebulous thing because customers don't go around thinking about their identity proper, right? It's kind of like marketers think about a customer's identity, but a customer's just a customer. The things surrounding a customer have to become tangible and obvious, and if our network can bring those to them and help them be productive as a result, all of a sudden identity starts to matter. You start paying attention that, that app just remembered me. I did do that last week and that was actually predictive. All of a sudden the network starts feeding on your predilections, your sense of comfort, and responding to it, and you start to feel the identity, right? And that's where I think the next few years are going to take us through cloud services. I think that you'll see a lot of domains starting to be bridged. And what I mean by that is right now, if you go to Facebook, everything you can do with people in Facebook is contained within Facebook, right? When you go to Skype, everything you can do within Skype is contained within Skype. I think you're going to start to see those handshake starting to happen. I think you'll see it happen on a bigger scale. So the common features will become more important than the domain. Right now, the features are hosted in a domain. Pretty soon, it'll be the features people focus on, not if this is a Facebook person and this is a Skype person. They will just engage. And I think that's what's going to happen over the next few years. We like to consider ourselves champions of the consumer, right? So right now, the consumer domain is really where we're focusing. And what I mean by domain is that sense of identity. It is a domain, right? It's your protected space. It's your private information. It's your preferences. It's your patterns. They're all held by you. They're not held by us. We just kind of enable it. There was a quote from Alan Mulally at Boeing who said, we don't ever put Boeing paint on a plane. When it leaves the hangar, it's got our customers' paint on it. And I think about that way, our customers that way a little bit, and that we don't think about AT&T being the paint on the customer, right? The customer's paint is on the customer, and we try to enable that. So as all these communities start talking to each other, we want to provide services that help that customer engage in that flow, and that's important to us. Augmented reality is a really interesting topic of conversation because it's visceral, right? You hold something up in a viewfinder and you see things that aren't there in real life, and that's cool, right? But if you look at how often it's used, it runs the risk of being a novelty, in that you're not really going to, right now, go down the street and viewfind your way to a restaurant, right? I think augmented reality has a future in a more casual sense versus a more deliberate sense. And right now, the trend is say, hey, I'm going to put it right out in front, and this is the gimmick as to why you should use Yelp or why you should use something else. I think you'll see augmented reality be more of a casual feature, where you can look at a map and have an augmented reality session in the map without having to viewfind. And I think that's where it has some potential, right? With NFC, huge future, right, in terms of personal banking, commerce, which is a whole other discussion point. But we're obviously part of ISIS and that whole joint venture, and we believe that the carrier has a huge future in mobile commerce, and NFC is a big part of helping deliver that. I think the play-based behavior gets back to what I was saying, that you have to understand how people pay attention to things. They pay attention to things when they're looking at something, and they pay attention to things that are going on in the background. So when you design an app, you have to think about both. It's almost like an iceberg. What goes on under the surface of the water, what goes on above the surface of the water. And I think that's how we think about more and more engaging customers when they're looking at it and when they're not looking at it. And that sense of playfulness can be all kinds of satisfaction returns. And there was a speaker at the TED conference that said, I really think schools are missing out on something by not offering a triple gold warlock status to somebody who gets a grade, who does well, instead of offering a B, right? And that kids might be a lot more incented if they got all these fantastical virtual points and mojo and what have you. And I think there's a lot to that. And I often think about what our business would be like if we took something as dry as carrier billing and started giving gaming type incentives for people to engage in communications more, right? And I think there's future in that. Gaming as a mechanism for getting people to engage in brand, right? This could be done with toothbrushes that have a sensor to get you to get more toothpaste. I mean, I think it's the science of how people respond to things is very much rooted in gaming, and the mechanisms by which people can engage, I think, will be extended into a lot of brands, into a lot of the real world. It won't be just about pure gaming.